Talofa, Afio Mai, and welcome to episode 2 of Intersections Talanoa Podcast. Intersections Talanoa today, I am interviewing Kemana Ka'anapu. Kemana is currently in my Pacific Island Studies, Environmental Issues, and Resource Management class, where he is conducting original and quite fascinating research with goals to present his scholarship at the Undergraduate Research Conference next spring in March and submit his manuscript to the Intersections Journal. Stephanie Robertson and Karen Lesuma, be on the lookout for Kemana's research. Our librarian Stephanie and Professor Lesuma are the co-directors of the Undergraduate Research Conference. Talofa Kemana.
Yaurana, aloha, what's up?
He is majoring in and a sophomore in Pacific Island Studies. Whoop, whoop. He's minoring in conservation biology and another minor in foundational language study. Kemana is married and works at Kahuku for Climeworks Kaena Farm Zipline. So, Kemana, question number 1. I don't know if you watched the first episode, but your fellow Pacific Island Studies major, Ainsley, she rapped her name to keep up with the theme. And I've heard on the streets of TVA that you have a little something something. So is there anything that you like to rap about here in Intersections Talanoa?
Yes, I came prepared with my bars, okay?
Oh, okay.
Easy little 8-bar rhyme, just shouting out a couple teachers. Here, let me pull it up real quick.
Oh, okay. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I like to write rhymes just for fun and stuff.
Do you need any beats or sound, or are you good? You're just gonna...
I like to do acapella, yeah.
Oh, excuse me. That's gonna set a high bar for future students. Ready when you are.
I said, hold up, little mana get the bussin'. Shout out to my teachers, they always showing me something. Uncle Alex banging the pahu, he always drumming while the mana hit the pauti. Yeah, my knees is thumping. Hit the salsa, hit the haka, either way my chest is bumping. That's when Sister Naliai start the track and then we run it. Who's next? Shout out Aloha Lani for teaching me how to speak. Coming from Kansas City, my Olelo was pretty weak. Now I feel it getting stronger every class of every week. Word. That's all I really have. I knew it like as I was coming to this interview because I forgot, but I still had to throw some bars down.
I love it. Representing. Thank you so very much. That's a high standard. Yeah. Thank you. So before we get into your research topic, would you mind telling us where you're from and kind of what brought you to BYU Hawaii? And did you have any family that attended the school or Church College of Hawaii?
Oh, yeah. So I'm from Kansas City. I was raised over there by my mom. My dad, his whole side of his family is from here or from French Polynesia. And my dad's whole side of the family went to school here. That's actually what brought my grandma over here, was to come to school. Her grandpa was the first village chief in the Tahiti village. And so the whole family came over. My grandma worked there growing up, and then they all went to school. All my aunties, uncles, all my grandparents' kids, my dad's siblings all came to school here, except for my father. And so my family's always been here. That was one of the main reasons I wanted to come here, to connect with that side, coming from Kansas City, and just the amazing educational opportunities that there are here. And I just wanted to follow in their footsteps.
That is amazing. So you're pretty much rooted in the Polynesian Cultural Center and at Church College and at BYU Hawaii, and specifically in the villages that your grandfather kid. Wow, that's great. That is such a legacy. Well, I'm glad you came here. So I guess let's get right into it. So why did you choose to research about wildfires in Hawaii?
So I wanted to research something that was important, that was relevant, and also something that I would care about, so I would be invested in it. I care about Hawaii, but I want to be a firefighter, and I figured that was the best way that I could go about researching something. So I picked something alongside my career path. And surprisingly, when I started to research about wildfires to even see if it was a problem, I was surprised that it's a huge problem here. And then the research just kind of flowed from there. But I want to be a firefighter, so that's why I picked wildfires.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I guess why do you want to be a firefighter?
Um, I've always wanted to be a firefighter. It's been something that's been in the back of my head since I was little, but I really like jobs or things where I'm moving, where I'm out doing stuff. I really like the idea of serving the community in that way. I love the idea of just going out there and fighting something that literally destroys communities. I mean, it in every single way, and so it just always appealed to me. There's not really specifics as to why I want to be a firefighter. I never had any experiences with fires in my life, but it always appealed to me, I guess, is a good way to put it. And it's a good way to help any community, no matter where you are.
Word, no, I can absolutely see that. Listening to your families and the legacy here, service seems to be very rooted with you and your family. So I can see why firefighting and the whole profession would appeal to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know because we've had so many conversations, your commitment and your desire to research has kind of been in a straight line. You wanted to look into wildfires because of your passion towards your professional pursuit. And I've read several drafts of your research, and I can see you're doing historical research and you're using a lot of primary historical data. You're looking at government reports, you're looking at different agency reports.
Yeah.
You looked at actually, you're going to Fire County data to look at that aspect as well. But I think your research, I haven't gotten yet to the next theme. I don't know if you're including life histories into your manuscript, but at this point, what do you think you learned from the historical research by looking at the different reports and the quantitative numbers about wildfires here in Hawaii?
The biggest thing I've learned is that just because we're primarily responsible for all wildfires, is that our impact is so huge and that we're constantly changing landscapes without thinking about what's going to happen when we change landscapes. I mean, Hawaii has gone through a lot of different, oh, I don't know how to call it. I don't want to say phases. This is too diluted. Hawaii's it's gone through a lot of different phases as far as how we use the land. You know, ever since 1848, the Great Mahele, the privatization of land, and then plantation and ranching, agriculture, all those different things. We've constantly been changing the landscape, and the biggest thing I've learned is how we're using the land has a direct effect on it. So much so that we're introducing things that have never been a problem in Hawaiian history ever, and that's wildfires. We're changing the landscape to be wildfire prone and prone to all kinds of natural disasters. We're changing the landscape to be more susceptible to climate related disasters. And looking at the historical context, like you can really see that. You see through the past 100 years, like when exactly these wildfires became a problem, their exponential growth, the direct correlation between human population in that, and the types of societies we've lived in. So I guess to kind of go back to what your question was, the biggest thing I've learned is that the way we treat our landscape has changed it to be more susceptible to natural disasters, wildfires, and things like that. But we can also change it to be the opposite. You know what I'm saying by that? Like we can change it to be more resistant to these things. It's just we need to actually intentionally do so.
I absolutely agree. And when you say we, let's back it up. So when you say we, do you like literally mean like you, Mana, and me, Line, or do you mean the humans, or do you mean people in Ko'olalo? What do you mean?
Um, I guess I'm referring to just Hawaii as a whole. I know like everyday people really don't like the things they don't really like. We don't have much decision making power over, how this amount of land is used, or in which way the government uses this land, and how the military uses their land. um
Right.
but when I mean we, I just mean Hawaii in general. I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how to answer that. I'm not saying any specific individuals, I guess. I just mean Hawaii. Everyone is underneath that umbrella through the past 100 years.
And it's interesting because I also think there's such a big correlation. You're really interested to becoming a firefighter. Your families came here. There's a great deal of service involved, and that's kind of rooted down into what it is you want to do and why you're coming here, because service is such a big part of the fabric and the tapestry that connects us at BYU Hawaii. Part of what you're also saying is, as communities, we should be service driven in resiliency efforts or mitigation or what have you. But that also requires a certain amount of cultivating our relationships with each other, between you and me, and then relationship with that is the natural, that we are consumers and users and polluters. We're all of those put together. I don't want to put a value to it, whether it's good or bad, but we check all the boxes. So I think part of it, I think what I'm hearing is there's a value to how we use, and there's also a responsibility that we have, not just between us as humans, but between our natural environment. Because I see you're intentional. You keep speaking to landscapes. And landscapes is very broad. Landscapes isn't just
Yeah.
land, it's the air, it's the water, it's the rain,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because we're elementals, it's in everything.
Hmm.
Everything, our ancestors are in everything that exists. Do you are you do you agree, or is that something different
Yes.
than what you speak to?
No, I definitely agree. When I'm talking about Hawaii and Hawaiians, I'm speaking about it on multiple levels. Your everyday person, how they treat the land, and then people who are responsible for large pieces of land, the government. It's on multiple levels how we all interact. But yes, this accurate is as to what I'm trying to say and speak to.
Okay, awesome. That's great.
Mhm.
So in your research, that's your research method. Check. So can you tell me, and it's something that I asked Ainsley the last episode, what do you think as a scholar? Because you're a sophomore now, and everything that you've learned historically, because your education didn't start at BYU Hawaii, you came in and you're now an asset to teach everyone else in the class, including your teachers like myself. I've learned so much from you. What do you think has been one of the more interesting aspects of this research for you, just as a student scholar?
For me, the most or one of the more interesting aspects of this research has been diving into just the relationship between people and land stewardship. A lot of my research involved looking at how, you know, my kupuna stewarded over the land and how they divided the land and how they were so intentional with what they did in relation to the land, to the water cycle, to the air, the plants, the trees. Everything was so intentional, and it's been like I've been researching a lot of how ahupua'as work, how they divided up the land, and how everything was based off of the water cycle, off of watershed, and all these different things. And just learning about how my kupuna were able to steward over the land. How are they able to maintain the same population we have today, but have none of these problems? It's really opened my eyes as to what we actually are capable of doing, that we actually are capable of um, having a healthy relationship with our environment that doesn't involve us constantly destroying it, which is not really something I didn't really know if it was possible, or like if that was even a feasible possibility. But just looking into the examples of how my kupuna used and stewarded over the land using watershed based land divisions and all these other things has shown me that there is a way that we can do it.
See, and that segues so well. Our class went to Huilua Fish Pond in Kahana. It's within their Ahupua. And interestingly, part of your research talks a lot about and draws attention to invasives. Kahiao and Olivia, when they speak about the fish pond, it's not just the pond and the water sits away from everything. They talked about the air, they talked about the mangrove, they talked about nearshore, they talked about everything that connects into the land. And one of the things that we did when we went there for service for our class is we weeded. But before we weeded, Kahiao had identified which weeds were actually helping the coastline to keep it, to shore it. She talked about napaka, but specific weeds. And then she had actually talked about invasives, and the invasives actually have a direct relationship to the birds and the fish pond. So when you start and you know about the invasives and what they do, sometimes invasives do attract birds that you need, and you also need them to help to. They're also signposts to seasons. During different seasons, birds flock. During certain seasons, birds migrate away. And so it was such a great learning experience to see how birds, invasives, fish pond all correlate in this ecosystem. And in your research, you actually speak to a lot of research about invasives and its correlation to fires. And I believe you say um, high, the higher rate of and propensity for wildfires. Can you speak more about that?
Oh yeah, so I love speaking about these grasses.
Oh,
It for me, it's the easiest thing. For me, it's the easiest thing for any person who hears this to go out and see. I'm speaking of things like fountain grass, African pasture grass. One I don't really know how to say. It's a weird Latin name, but there's all kinds of these invasive grasses. Fountain grass is the easiest one to see. Just think about the name. It literally looks like a fountain as it comes up. The green, like the leaves and stuff. It's easy to find. But these things is this is what I'm talking about when I say changing the landscape. So these fountain grasses or these invasive grasses will completely dominate a landscape. Especially because of the fuel cycles that we have here in Hawaii. It'll rain a ton for like a day, and then it'll get really hot for a day, and so you'll have literally these invasive grasses grow up to like 5 to 7 inches in that period, and then the next day or the next week when it gets really hot, they'll all die. They accumulate all this biomass, and it's this these invasive grasses are the perfect fuel for fire. So when it does get dry and a fire does happen, it just torches the landscape. did studies on these grasses. They actually take up 25% of all Hawaiian land is taken up by these grasses. So a quarter of all the land is taken by these grasses, and these grasses increase flame height by 3 to 5 times, and also the rate in which fires spread by 3 to 5 times. And they grow everywhere underneath canopies. It can grow like where there's no sunlight. They grow pretty much everywhere, and they're the first thing that grows back after the fires. And so a fire will come through, it'll completely destroy all the native plants, everything, and the soil can't regrow these things. The native species here in Hawaii are not fire adapted, so they can't regrow after a fire, so they're just gone. But these invasive grasses can. They come from places that are fire adapted. So they're the first thing that pops up. Then they completely dominate the landscape. And then you just get a whole landscape filled with these grasses instead of any native trees. They take over the ecosystem. And because the landscape is then filled with all these native grasses, they're ripe for fire again. And then the cycle just repeats and repeats and repeats until it takes up more and more and more land.
Okay, I just had a PhD class in grasses and then also in its correlation to bigger and more the rate frequency of fires. Literally, it's like we just had a PhD workshop. Thank you. That was for free. But I mean, and I think it's such great research and scholarship because I think in undergraduate conference, this actually has direct real world application. Literally, when you graduate the next day, boom, it's happening, it's current. And I love it because here in Ko'olauloa, we also have a great deal of invasives, and we also have fires in particular communities like Kahuku, the one we just saw that raged on for days, during the semester a couple of weeks ago. And so it does affect our quality of life and what we have left. Don't you think?
Yeah. A lot of people, well, a lot of people are surprised when I say Hawaii has a wildfire problem. And they don't think it would affect the wetter parts of the island. But it does. I mean, we saw that with these invasive grasses, it'll just keep burning and burning, even though some would consider like the Ko'olau, that whole area, they would consider it to be more wet than if you compare it to like Kapolei or the southwest side of the island. because of things like invasive grasses and other things that we're doing to our environment. We've made the wetter parts of the island fire prone. And you do see that a lot. I mean, a perfect example was what you just said with the fire we saw in Kohuku. I mean, that thing went for like almost a week, and we couldn't get it out. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I'm very much looking forward to your presentation of your research. And I'm pretty sure a lot of community associations would have great amount of value. And in fact, as we're talking, I'm going to have you present at our community associations and our Ko'olau neighborhood board, because a lot of people will want to know, particularly kupuna that may live alone. There may be mitigation efforts that they can take that may protect themselves and their homes and their loved ones. And so I'm really looking forward to your research. And I mean, we've come to the conclusion of Intersections Talanoa. And thank you so much, Kemana, for your research here and sharing it with us here at Talanoa. And students here like yourself are doing so much to contribute to the world and to our communities, and to share a little bit more to make it a much more happier and safe place. So Faftai, Kemana, and see you soon in the Coconut Wireless. Tofa soifua.
Thank you.
Savage love. Did somebody break your heart? Looking like an angel, but you're savage love. When you kiss me, I know you don't get to, but I still want that. You're savage.